During a particularly stressful time in my life and chaotic time in the world, although maybe not as chaotic as things are right now, I really felt called to drop in, fret less, and play more. I also longed for simplicity and a way to deal with the despair that I felt in relation to a seemingly endless stream of suffering and divisiveness that pervades our planet. Little did I know that my decision to spend a little time doodling as a simple act of self-care would lead to the birth of the 64 Faces of Awakening art project, an oracle deck, an inner guidebook, a coloring book project, a global video campaign, and ultimately a deep involvement with a human rights organization in Uganda called Universal Love Alliance. The creative process behind the birth of the 64 Faces of Awakening was mysterious, whimsical, and deeply intuitive. I started the journey with absolutely no agenda, using nothing more than black ink on white paper. My first doodle drawing was completely abstract. The second turned out to be the very first of the 64 Faces of Awakening, the one who much later received the name the Wisdom Keeper of Grace. I enjoyed drawing her and communing with her so much that I decided to call in another face. This was the second one who came to me, and she later received the name the Wisdom Keeper of Simplicity. Over the coming months, I welcomed one face after another. This deeply meditative process did not only heal and soothe my stressed out soul, it allowed me to work through my own grief about the wounded and conflictual state of the world. Many of the faces or beings emerged through my dreams and imagination. Every once in a while, I'd feel a strong pull to capture the essence of a person or maybe a hybrid of people who had inspired or moved me on an archetypal level. And on a couple of occasions, I saw a person walking down the street or sitting in a cafe whose energy and expression I felt compelled to bring forth in a drawing. There were also a few times when others shared their visions of a face with me, and I integrated the essence of those visions into an image. So over time, these beings came to represent both ancient and new human archetypes that connect us with our collective evolution and indigenous roots. I love that many of the wisdom keepers who came to me were elders, showing me just how important it is that we honor and celebrate the wisdom and radiance of a population that in our youth-obsessed culture all too often go underappreciated and underutilized. Most of all, the wisdom keepers showed me that all of us, no matter where we come from, how old we are, what religion, ethnicity, and nationality we belong to, have the same potential to be fully awake, present, and to live from the heart. As I began to share these keepers with others, I noticed that they too would gaze into the eyes of these wise beings and feel seen, cherished, and supported. It was as if the wisdom keepers invited people to relax, to be themselves, and to trust that everything was going to be okay, even during challenging times. The 64 Faces of Awakening were no longer just drawings for people. They were friends, guides, mentors, transmitters of presence, trust, and compassion. And as I surrendered to their guidance, I embarked on the next phase of my journey, allowing the wisdom keepers to speak to and through me. One at a time, they revealed their personal stories to me. It became increasingly clear that each of them earned their wisdom and discovered their gifts by not only surviving painful and challenging experiences, but by embracing them. This process of storytelling resulted in the birth of the Wisdom Keeper's Oracle deck and inner guidebook, both deeply inspired by Jung, the I Ching, human design, and especially the Gene Keys, brought to the world by poet, author, world philosopher Richard Rudd and his spectrum of consciousness. After the Oracle deck and inner guidebook came out, I had the wonderful opportunity to watch more and more people read the Wisdom Keeper's stories and receive their gifts of wisdom. They also contemplated their evocative questions, and I witnessed their comforting, empowering, and healing impact. It can be so good to be reminded that very few of us get to be present, loving, and compassionate in this life without experiencing some kind of pain or loneliness, discomfort, and fear. So wherever we find ourselves at this moment, if we're learning to greet our challenges with openness and curiosity, we're also very likely on our way to becoming our own keepers of wisdom. Likely in response to some internal wisdom keeper tugging, I began to feel a strong and natural pull to infuse the faces with color. And as I allowed myself to play with the rainbow and follow my self-expressive instincts, a warmth and vitality permeated my meditative process. The relationships I experienced with each of the wisdom keepers became increasingly alive and personal. Eventually, other people began feeling the same creative impulse. Even my daughter and her friends and people who purchased Wisdom Keeper art prints spontaneously started their own experiments. And I watched how the coloring process made room for their emotions, it relaxed their bodies, it transported them into deeply restorative states of being. And I started to see the Wisdom Keeper's potential to act as human Mandalas, offering people a uniquely intimate opportunity to explore their feelings, relieve their stress, discover their gifts, and express their authentic selves. So I created the 64 Faces of Awakening coloring book and started donating these books through 64faces.org to a variety of groups and organizations around the country and now even world. And it's been so moving to see even more ways that the Wisdom Keepers can bring comfort, healing, and creative fun to all kinds of populations. Foster juvenile youth, the mentally disabled, children in hospitals, women and homeless people living in shelters, patients experiencing chronic pain, even impoverished and traumatized children in Africa. These drawings were becoming soul windows or medicinal mirrors, each being or face an exquisitely unique reflection of the truth that the face of love and compassion is universal, and of the potential that resides deeply within each of us. It doesn't matter where we live, how old we are, or whether we're into spirituality. I myself enjoyed coloring in the Wisdom Keepers so much that I decided to create a full color version of the Wisdom Keepers Oracle deck. You can learn more about the Oracle deck on my website. There are lots of informative testimonials and a ton of inspiring video reviews by wonderful Oracle Tarot deck enthusiasts. I've also got resellers in Romania, Australia, New Zealand, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and China, as well as translated versions of the Inner Guidebook on the way. So feel free to join my mailing list or visit my website for updates. The Oracle deck is available on Amazon.